Happy New Year and welcome to the New Year, New Me Club. The time of year where you have every intention of creating new habits, waking up early, eating healthier, getting fit, and saving more money. Well, I can't help you with most of those, but I can help you with creating delicious meal prep that doesn't suck. So today's video is my ultimate guide to weeknight meal prep dinners that don't suck from my chef's experience. So I'm gonna run you through 4 proteins, 2 legumes, and 10 veg and garnish sides for burrito bowl inspired meals that you can mix and match and not get bored throughout the week. Let's get stuck in. The meal prep carbohydrate king, rice, but we're gonna season it. We'll do that once it's cooked. First of all, rice in your rice cooker. Wash it till the water almost runs clear. Enough water to the first knuckle into your rice cooker. If you don't have a rice cooker, just use a pot with a lid, bring it up to a simmer, turn the heat right down low, and cook it until all the water's evaporated. But the same method before that. Rinse it really well. First knuckle water, on she goes. Rice. White rice is delicious. First step is to fluff it. Wow, seasoning. We're gonna season our rice, people. I don't know why people don't season their rice enough. So you can do it with like sushi rice seasoning, which you can buy, which works really well. What I like to do is use some of this, which is a Japanese spice mix, which I'm pretty sure is pronounced as taragoshi. I could get that wrong. I like a bit of this, which adds a nice little citrusy note. And I like to amplify that citrusy note with some lime zest and lime juice. So I put half the seasoning in and stir it through and add the other half. Take the time to season your rice because it literally turns plain old rice into something that's really tasty and moorish with just a couple of extra steps. Into a container, give it a label and let it cool completely before we put a lid on it and get it in the fridge. One of my favorites, black beans. You need to soak these covered in water overnight in the fridge. Once they've soaked for 24 hours, you're gonna rinse them well until the water runs clear. And then I found the best way to cook black beans is in lots of water in a pressure cooker. If you don't have a pressure cooker, you can just use a normal pot, but it is gonna take a while. Just keep it simmering, keep stirring. It's probably gonna take an hour and a half. So make sure the beans are really well covered in water. It'll absorb more than you probably expect. Then you're gonna add a big pinch of salt, 3 bay leaves, 1 onion, just peeled and the ends off, and 4 cloves of garlic just crushed. Now remember, you're gonna eat these things for 4 days, maybe 5 days even. So take the extra steps, add the garlic, add the onion, season it well. Otherwise, it's gonna be a pretty boring week. Turn that on, you want it on low pressure. We'll check it after 25 minutes. These have been cooking for 25 minutes. I release the pressure. Let's see how they're doing. For me, the ideal black bean is it's nice and tender, but it's still holding shape. Drain those. I mean, you really just need to get the bay leaves out. The onions garlic can stay in there, nothing wrong with that. Pour it into our container, label it, and let them cool until we put them in the fridge. So we're gonna get into the protein section now. We're gonna start with salmon. Couple of things to talk about. I love crispy skin pan-fried salmon. However, it does not hold up in the fridge. So don't bother trying to get crispy skinned salmon now because it's just gonna taste like jelly rubber in 2 days time when you reheat it. So I prefer to bake my salmon when I'm using it for meal prep. Why? Because I think you can control the temperature better of the inside. For me, I like to undercook my salmon slightly rather than overcook it because you're probably gonna shove it in the microwave to reheat it later, or even when you eat it cold. Medium rare salmon is far more juicy and tasty compared to well done salmon. Seasoning is super important when it comes to all cooking, but especially this cup of cooking, because you wanna make sure that everything's seasoned nicely, but it all complements each other. You want something that's kinda gonna work with everything. So if you like salmon and black beans tonight and then salmon and rice tomorrow, you want it to still taste slightly different. So all these seasonings we're gonna use for proteins, you can mix and match them. Use them on whatever protein you want. For the salmon, I'm gonna use olive oil, then some salt, and then some ground fennel. Fennel works really well with fish. It also works pretty well with chicken. And I'm gonna use a little bit of ground white pepper. Why white pepper over black pepper? I don't know, it's a weird like French chef thing that they use white pepper with fish. I guess because you can't see it as much, but you can use ground black pepper as well. So, in the oven it goes on 190 degrees Celsius, fan force. I'm gonna check it after 8 minutes. It'll probably take 10 though. Ooh. All right, I know it's looking pretty pale, but it won't be dry. 2 more minutes, be good to go. Ooh. Perfect. You can see it's still got a bit of bounce in it, so that'll be nice and medium rare in the middle. We're gonna place it into our container, let it cool down before we put a lid on it, and that skin will just peel off nicely when you pull it out of the container. Chicken, the meal prep protein of choice for most people. Why? Chicken's pretty tasty. I like chicken. Fun fact, family owns a chicken farm. Olive oil. I like Old Bay on my chicken, but I think Old Bay works really well as a seasoning in general. Decent amount of Old Bay on there and some salt. And then we're gonna take it outside to the grill, which I've got ripping hot. I'm gonna get some good bar lines on the outside before we put it on a tray, lined with paper, and we place it in the oven to finish cooking. So why do we start it on the grill and finish it in the oven? Well, because we want the bar lines from the grill to add some flavor. Finishing in the oven allows us to control the temperature better, and it's also an indirect source of heat, so you got less chance of the chicken drying out. Once that chicken reaches internal temperature of about 68 to 70 degrees Celsius, we're gonna pull it out and cool it down quickly because it's safe to eat. Chicken has reached 70 degrees internal, pull it out into a container, let it cool down completely before we put a lid on it and place it in the fridge. The obligatory ground beef, and I say obligatory, but it's, you know, it's good for a reason. The only thing I will say about cooking beef like this is go to a butcher and get good beef. It makes such a difference. If you put it in the pan, it shouldn't leach out heaps of water. It's gonna, sometimes it'll oxidize a little bit. That's okay. That's just because it's not packed with an inert gas to stop that happening. It's natural, it happens. If it's got a little bit of brown like that, don't stress, it's fine. It should smell like beef. It should be fresh, have no real odor. And then we're gonna season it, and we're not gonna use taco seasoning. We're gonna use something more interesting. This is ras el hanout, which is a spice blend from like North Africa and really prominent in Moroccan cooking. But you can use whatever spice mix you want, like I said earlier. Pan's nice and hot. We're gonna break up our beef to little pieces and just let it get some browning. Season with salt and our ras el hanout. We're not gonna start breaking that up just yet. You really wanna let that Maillard reaction start to work before we start stirring. So I'm doing about 1 kilo of beef in total here, but I'm gonna do it in 2 500-gram batches. And you could even go 3 or 4 if you really wanna get great color on that beef, but you know, I think 2's enough. In a pan this size anyway. A burrito bowl is not a Mexican invention. It's not something that you'll find in Mexico, I don't think anyway. I think it's like a North Cali kind of thing. So you can kind of be a bit more adventurous with what you're putting in it. Doesn't need to be super traditional. I often love kimchi in my burrito bowls that I make at home. And you see here, that mince has not let any water out into that pan. And it doesn't take long to cook. You really do not want to overcook it. So as soon as you see all the pink disappear, that's good to go. First batch done, let's do the other one. Label on it, let it cool down before you put a lid on it and place it in the fridge. And the last protein we're gonna do is some prawns, or shrimp if you live in the States. Well, but technically they're not the same thing, but they kind of are the same thing. Does that make sense? Not the same animal, very similar. Anyway, peeled and deveined prawns, a good drizzle of olive oil, a pinch of salt. Prawns are great too, right? Really low in fat, almost 0 fat, decent amount of protein. They're just expensive. And tahine, some tahine that's quite old by the looks of it. So perfect for this. You wouldn't really want to use it on like a cocktail or something, but considering this is going to be pan fried, it's great. If you don't know what tahine is, it's a Mexican spice blend, very citrusy, a very small amount of heat, not really much heat at all, but absolutely delicious. Make sure all that seasoning is kind of nicely distributed. Pan's on hot. Gonna add a little bit more oil to the pan, olive oil. Let that come up to temperature. And then we're gonna add our prawns. A couple of minutes each side. And instead of dumping the whole pan in at once, do it individually because it'll allow the pan to keep up a bit better, if that makes sense. You put all these cold prawns in there, the heat will really come out of that pan. We want to cook these quickly and ideally get a little bit of char on them too. Once you see the tails start to go pink, time to flip. Then we're going to turn the heat off, add the juice of a lemon, and out they come. Label on. Let them cool. We're gonna move into the veg section of this video, but I wanna start with something that's actually not gonna be ready today. Sauerkraut's one of those things that I always have in my fridge. Having something fermented with your diet every day is really good for your gut health. And you can absolutely just go buy sauerkraut and use it. There's nothing wrong with that. But if you make it yourself, it just tastes better. Cabbage, fancy cabbage peeler. Now we need to weigh the cabbage. 1.7 kilos. Every 1 kilo of cabbage, we need 20 grams of cooking sea salt. That will work out to be a grand total of 34 grams of salt. So we need 34 grams of cooking salt, which is more than you probably think actually. Let's see, well, there we go, that's 38. Stunning. And now we need to get all that evenly across that. And the best way to do it is to do it in batches. Season it, really rub it in there. Push that to one side, repeat. You feel the liquid coming out of that already. Look at this. gonna wash my hands. We'll leave that for half an hour and then we'll pack it into a ceramic jar and we'll let it ferment for 4 weeks. You won't see the end product in this video, I'm sorry. But, oh, it's on a short. I have a short. I'll link it below. So it's sat for half an hour and you can see here a lot of water's come out, but we want that water. Don't throw that away. I'm gonna put some caraway. I like caraway. Caraway's delicious. Quite a bit of caraway. I'm gonna evenly mix that through. And then here I've got a fermenting jar, ceramic jar. You can just use a glass jar if you want. Okay, so we're gonna pack this. You wanna pack it fairly tight. You don't want big air bubbles, small handfuls. In it goes and push it down. And any extra liquid, make sure you pour that in as well. So we're gonna press down nice and firm on this and you should feel the liquid covering the cabbage. It doesn't have to be covered by a lot, but you want there to be water on the top. If the water doesn't cover it, dissolve some more salt in some water. For every kilo or a litre of water, add 20 grams of salt and dissolve it, and then pour it on the top. You won't need a litre, you might need 100 mils or something, because you need that to kind of cover it. Anyway, put some weights on top, which will keep that cabbage under that water level. Stunning. Secretly just wanted to make some sauerkraut during work hours, so I kind of incorporated it into a video. This will be ready in 4 weeks, it'll be delicious. 3 weeks if you want it crunchy and not super strong. 4 weeks if you want it a little bit more, you know, funky. I'm gonna put some water in this too, and what that will do is, like I said before, create an airlock. I'll see you in 4 weeks. Veggies. There's 2 things I want to talk about before we start cooking them, because we're going to go through rapid fire through these because it's a lot of the same thing and I don't want to bore you. The first thing I want to talk about is make sure you undercook your veggies. I think a large reason why a lot of people don't like to eat veggies, not looking at anyone, Dazz, is because they were served rubbish veggies that were overcooked as kids. Undercook them, they're going to get reheated. Well-cooked veggies are delicious, overcooked veggies suck. The second thing is acid. Acid is super important in cooking, and I think it's underutilized a lot for the home cook. Acid balances flavor, enhances flavor, and there's lots of ways to add acid. You can use citrus like lemons and limes, or even oranges and blood oranges, or you can use vinegars. And vinegars are very broad, there's lots of vinegars. If you had to have one, I'd say just have apple cider vinegar. That'll do the job well. A close second would be something like this, a sherry vinegar. This is quite an expensive sherry vinegar. You don't need to get a super expensive one. You can if you want. A very delicious vinegar though, a little bit sweeter. A Chinese style black vinegar, that's usually the ones that you have in dumplings, but I really like it to use it to season veggies as well. It's a bit sharper, has quite a nice, you know, malty flavor almost. And then this is a vinegar that I've become really accustomed to lately in the last couple of years, spending a bit of time in the Philippines, is a coconut vinegar, a bit of more of a mild flavor. As far as the coconut, but it's got quite a pungent kind of vinegar flavor, which isn't a bad thing. You just need to be careful when you're using it. So how we're gonna attack the veggies is we're gonna saute them in a little bit of olive oil, salt, and we're gonna season them with vinegar. The vinegar is gonna balance out flavor, and it's also gonna help us as we store these veggies. We're gonna raise the acid level, it means they're not gonna go off as quick, and they should hold their crunch a bit longer. That's enough of me yapping. It's gonna be quick fire, show you how to cut them, pan fry, move on to the next one. First up, zucchini or courgette, depending where you are in the world. The top and tail off your zucchini, straight down the middle, and then you want to cut on an angle, relatively thick. Get your pan nice and hot. Once your oil's starting to smoke, add your zucchini. Don't overcrowd your pan. And just like with the beef, let them get a bit of color up before you start tossing. A little bit of salt, ground cumin works really well with zucchini. After a couple of minutes, give them a stir and then leave them again for another few more minutes. This is what we're looking for. If we can get color like this on all sides, we're in a good place. However, undercooking them is more important than having color, in my opinion, in this scenario. Because if you overcook these just to get color, you're gonna get really soggy veg. That's it, that's all those need. Out they go, and we'll cook the rest. All right, I'm gonna turn the heat off. I'm gonna add the first lot back, and we're gonna dress them with a little bit of vinegar. Out they come. Zucchini's done. Next up, squash. But a word of warning, if you're using your favorite pan of this, it's a carbon pan or a cast iron pan, the vinegar at the end might affect your seasoning, so don't come at me if your seasoning comes off. Stainless steel pan, no drama. To cut these beautiful yellow squash in half, and then each half into 3. If they're smaller, just in half and in half again. Very similar to the last ones. Oil them, let it get hot. Do me a favor and like this video and subscribe so that I can continue making them and I hate having to ask. I don't know why. It feels so desperate.
You are desperate.
Yeah, I know I am. I'm desperate. Oil's hot. In those go. Ideally you want these, the flesh side down. That's going to get more colour than the skin side. Pinch of salt. Going to use a little bit of ground coriander. Get some colour on one side, flip them around, get the same on the other. Stunning. Heat off. Good colour on these. I'm happy with those. Look great, don't they? Let that pan temperature come down a little bit of apple cider vinegar. And off they come. Squash, done. Red capsicums. Slice the faces off. Make sure you get the bottom and the bit around the top. And then I like strips. Pan on high, olive oil in, capsicum. Or bell pepper. And we're going to enhance the capsicum flavour by using a little bit of paprika. Paprika is just dried and ground up capsicum. Good amount of colour there. Pan off. We're going to use lemon juice for the acid. Label. Capsicum's done. Next up, asparagus. I have a theory on asparagus. My theory is only eat it when it's in season. You should only eat most things when they're in season, especially asparagus. I don't know why, but in Australia we always get this imported asparagus, and it annoys me because we grow great asparagus here. If it's not in season, just don't eat it. Once your pan's hot, olive oil in, let that heat up, asparagus. Salt, and I'm going to use lemon myrtle. If you don't have lemon myrtle, it's an Australian native spice. If you live in Australia, you can order the stuff online. If you don't live in Australia, you might be able to order it online. If you don't want to, just use some lemon zest. But we're not going to put it in just yet. We want to get some half-decent char on this asparagus. We don't want to burn the lemon myrtle. Oh yeah. Okay, beginning some nice colour developing here. That is what we're looking for. Heat off. Myrtle. I'm going to use a little bit of coconut vinegar with this one. Actually going to toss that first. Asparagus done. Next up, corn. It's got the juice. How crazy was that? Well, what a time. Well, he was like 6, so hopefully he's in school. I'm gonna run your blade down the side of the cob, taking all the kernels off. Now, if you're a smarter man than me, you'll do this into a bowl so it doesn't go everywhere. And if you're even smarter, you'd stop what you were doing and fix the problem instead of just carrying on, but we're here now. Pan on high, olive oil. This will take seconds. I'm not gonna put any other spice on that. Hot oil in the pan, pinch of salt, done. And that's all the cooking done. Baby spinach is something that I'll always have because it's delicious and it's full of iron. Is that true, Dazz? Before I spread false information. I have no idea. I'm just referencing Popeye. It does have iron in it, can confirm.
Vitamin A, vitamin C, vitamin K, iron, folate, potassium, and add some protein.
Leafy greens, they're good for you. Wash it, put it in a container, then it's good to go. The idea of all this work we're doing now is you get home after a busy day, you open some containers, you choose your own journey. I want some salmon, I want some prawns, I want a bit of zucchini, some spinach and some asparagus. And then tomorrow, the same thing happens and you go, oh, actually I want some black beans and a little bit of rice, some beef, some zucchini, some red pepper. Choose your own journey, you know what I mean? Spinach. It's the easiest one yet. So since I decided to go rogue and make a recipe that takes 4 weeks, the other way you can do cabbage is I like to use raw red cabbage, shaved nice and fine. I love this thing. It's so satisfying. And then I just season it with a pinch of salt and some coconut vinegar. It's basically a quick pickle. It will lose a bit of water and kind of pool up in the bottom of the container, but that's okay. It'll go nice and vibrant red, which adds a nice pop of color. And even if you're just pulling a bowl of veggies into a burrito bowl at home, making it kind of presentable is always good. You know, eat with your eyes and all that. And that goes. Some seasoned raw red cabbage. Label. And we've only got one thing left. And it is the easiest. Cucumber. The trick I think with keeping cucumber fresh is to remove the seeds. So in half, take the tops off, in half lengthways, and again, and then cut the seeds out. And I think they just don't go as soggy. We're not gonna season this because otherwise the water will kind of pull out, which is a thing. Salted cucumbers does work, but I wanna try and keep this fresh because everything we've got here, you know, is nicely seasoned with vinegar and salt. So a nice little bit of freshness always helps to cleanse the palate. And then we're just gonna cut these at an angle. cucumber. One last thing. Avocados. Always have a couple of avocados on hand. I'll have one that's a little bit less ripe than the other one, so that one's ready to eat in the next day or so, and the other one should be ready later on in the week. If you're only using half the avocado, cut it open, twist it off, use the half that doesn't have the pip in it or the seed in it, and leave the seed in the half that you're saving. Cover it in plastic wrap or into an airtight container. I don't know if it works or not. I don't know if there's any truth to this, but for me, I find that it goes browner slower if you keep that seed in that side. So there you go. That's how I meal prep as a chef. Few key things to remember. Don't overcook your veg especially, and only just cook your meats and proteins. Make sure you got lots of variety so you don't get bored. Then you can pull bits different nights of the week. Chicken on one night with some zucchini, beef the next night with some capsicum, some corn, bit of fresh avocado in there, and that way you won't get bored. Make sure you're using acid to season things properly. It'll also keep things fresher longer. Thanks so much for watching, legends. Happy New Year. Hope it's a cracking one. Don't worry, this channel ain't turning into some healthy channel, but people do always ask me how I eat often at home. Look, when I'm not eating the food that we cook that's super rich and delicious, I eat really simple, basic stuff to try and keep a nice balanced diet. Happy 2025. And subscribe.